Hi, I'm Heidi.
I'm Lily.
I'm Taylor. I'm Rowan. I'm Anna.
And today we are going to show you how to do the
Kastle-Meyer Presumptive blood test,
which is part of the PLTW PBS new curriculum for 114 blood evidence. Part 1 of this activity I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you how to run the blood test, and I'm going to show them how to do it. And then for part 2, the 4 of them are actually going to test 4 different blood samples. I want to say thank you to Edvotech for providing the supplies needed to run this lab activity. We appreciate it. So for this, you're going to need your swab to collect your sample, and you're also going to need your sample of what might be blood from the scene. You'll need water, and this should be distilled water ideally, and also alcohol, which can be ethanol or isopropyl alcohol. And you will need some phenolphthalein, and you'll also need hydrogen peroxide, and all of these should be in labeled tubes for you. And just to make sure we don't have any cross-contamination, I have labeled, and I recommend that you do this as well, I have labeled some transfer pipettes with the same letters that you can see on the chemicals. So girls, when you do this, you should only use the A with the A chemical. So the alcohol pipette with the alcohol tube. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is just moisten the end of your swab with some water. So we want to use the transfer pipette that says W for water, and then the tube that says W for water. And it doesn't matter exactly how much you use, just put some in your pipette and add drops until the end of the swab is nice and moist. The idea is that it's going to be able to pick up your blood sample. Then you're going to take your swab and your blood sample and just touch the swab to the blood sample until you can see some of the color from the blood sample going on to the end of the swab. So just a little bit of color is fine. We're now done with the water and the blood sample. The next thing that we're going to add is the alcohol. So that's the one that has an A for alcohol. And you're supposed to add 40 microliters or a couple of drops of alcohol. So this doesn't have to be a super precise amount, so we're going to just use the transfer pipette. Make sure it does not touch the end because you don't want to cross-contaminate when you use the same pipette for your next sample. So I just put a few drops of alcohol onto the end, and that's to break open the cells and let the hemoglobin out of the red blood cells, because the hemoglobin is what the other chemicals are going to detect. Now we want to take our phenolphthalein, which I labeled with a P. And again, you're just supposed to do 40 microliters or a couple of drops of phenolphthalein. And we're going to just add that again without touching the actual end of our swab. Just make sure you get some of the phenolphthalein on there. And the final step, we're going to use hydrogen peroxide labeled H. And this is the step where if the substance is blood or maybe blood, you should see a color change happen. Yeah. So what we're looking for is for this to turn sort of a pinkish, pink or purple color.
It looks kind of pink.
It does look kind of pink. And that's because this is a positive sample. So this could be blood. That's all it means, is that it could be blood. So if you are going to run this lab yourselves, you can now get your supplies, stop the video, and go ahead and run the lab. But if you are learning from home or for some other reason can't do the lab, Lily and Taylor and Rowan and Anna are now going to demonstrate the other 4 samples. They're going to process the other 4 samples. Okay, so first I would like you guys to open up the bag, and this is what each student group should get, a bag from their teacher that has certain supplies in it. And can you go ahead and start pulling things out of the bag and saying what's in there? And hold that up.
Instructions.
Okay, so that is in the comments on this video, and teachers or students, you can print that out and then you can fill it out as you do this lab, whether you're doing the lab live or watching these lovely ladies do the lab. What else is in there, Rowan?
Q-tips.
Okay, so those are the swabs that you guys are going to use to pick up your samples. So why don't we give one of those to each of you? And what else?
Blood.
Okay, so give one of those to each of you. Now, it may be blood.
It might not.
It might not be.
Why is
Not
that
every dried...
stringy? Why is
Well,
it
it came from a scene of a crime.
Oh my goodness.
And we have to find out.
Was
Oh,
there-
maybe there's hair in there as well.
Was the person who died okay?
Okay, now we also have the 4 chemicals. So one of you should be in charge of each chemical, I think.
They don't have the letters on them though.
Right. So what you could do is you guys could write the letters on them. Should we do that?
Yeah.
So you have each labeled your pipettes, and you have the pipette that matches your reagent in your tube, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, which reagent are we going to add first?
Water.
So who has water?
Yeah.
Okay, Lily, open up the water tube. I recommend putting it into the tube holder, the yellow tube holder. Just set it in there. And then suck up some water into your transfer pipette.
Not too much.
She can really suck up all of it.
But don't we need some?
She'll pass around the pipette, though, to each of you. So hold your... Wait. Hold up your swab. There you go. Without touching it to the swab, go ahead and add a few drops of water to moisten it.
What does the N mean?
Actually, if you turn it sideways, it's a number. Okay, good, Lil.
2.
Pass it to Taylor.
Oh, the 2.
Yeah, so you got sample 2.
I got sample.
So this is the Kastle-Meyer test you guys are doing, and it's actually been around for more than 100 years. Scientists have been doing this test. 1903.
Oh, wow.
And they've been doing it to test things that are red to see if they might be blood or if they're definitely not blood.
Yeah.
So everybody take your moistened swab, open up your sample, and dip your swab down into it.
Out with the lid.
Oh, there you go. You got a little color on there.
I'm gonna go viral.
Uh-huh. Go. Okay, now you can cap your...
No, mine came with the hair.
It's okay, put it back in.
It's green.
Okay, it's fine, it's fine. It can be on there and it'll all be fine. Okay,
I guess it's
next,
part of the test.
who has the alcohol?
Oh, I do.
So do you guys remember what the alcohol is supposed to do?
It's supposed to clear the blood, open the blood cell.
Very good. It's going to break open the membranes. So, do you guys know what kind of cells are in blood?
White blood cells?
There are, but in this case, we're looking for red blood
Yes.
cells because red blood cells have a metal in them that this can detect. What's the metal?
Iron.
Iron. Very good. So this test is meant to detect the metal, the iron in red
To
blood
see
cells.
If it's real blood.
Yeah, but to detect it, we have to get the iron out of the cells by breaking the cells open. So think about a balloon.
And
We're going to
so,
pop the balloon.
If you take the iron out, it won't be like real blood.
Well, if you take the iron out, you can detect it.
And the color
So just
will
add a
change.
couple drops, Taylor, and then pass your pipette. Make sure it doesn't touch the swab so that you don't contaminate the pipette with your sample.
Like into the bottom of the vial.
Okay. So we're wrapping up our alcohol step, and what's going to come next?
Hydrogen peroxide.
Almost. That's the very last one.
Oh, there was another?
Uh-huh. Yeah, the P stands for phenolphthalein. Who has phenolphthalein? Okay, great. So phenolphthalein is most well known as an acid-base indicator. It stays clear if something's an acid, but it turns a nice pink color if it's a base. And that's the same color it's going to turn in the Kastle-Meyer test when we add the peroxide if there's iron, which could mean blood. But it could be something else with iron too. It's important to know this test is not 100%. It sometimes will suggest that something's blood even if it's not. So that's why it's called a presumptive blood test. It's not for sure blood test. So this is the big reveal. Again, careful not to touch it to the actual tip. Good job. What are we looking for?
A change of color, pink or purple. And it still looks red to me.
Which sample did you have, Rowan?
I had number 2.
Number 2.
Mine still looks like really red.
Oh.
It's pink on this side, but that's because I didn't get as much blood.
I'm just seeing if we can. Do we see any pinkish purple? Well, someone has the positive. Who has the positive today? Lily has the positive. I see her tube says positive. So we're going to compare the other ones to the positive because whatever hers looks like, if yours looks like it, it means it's also positive for blood.
It's already turning purple.
All right. So one tip is teachers might want to have students use micropipettes because we did have some issues with
purple. I think mine's the only one that turned purple.
Okay.
Yours is the positive
Hold
one.
hold still. So yours is the positive control. Who had the negative control?
Definitely me.
It looks like you, Taylor, had the negative control. So that should not have turned, and it didn't. So if yours looks more like Lily's, it's positive. And if yours looks more like Taylor's, it's negative.
Mine's dark red.
Oh, Anna's is like Taylor's. So that's a negative. And you had crime scene sample number
It's turning purple.
1. That's a 1, sorry. There's just 1 and 2.
I had number 2, and I don't know.
Well, does yours look more like Lily's or more like Taylor's?
Definitely more like Lily's.
And that means that it is?
Positive.
Okay. So I wanted to show you what the final results look like for all 4 samples at once. There are a couple things to be aware of. First of all, this is the most common presumptive blood test, but it's not the only one. Here you've seen on crime scene shows other blood tests. So there's one called LCV or Leukocrystal Violet, and that one can be used to check for blood even where it's been cleaned up, like on a carpet, and it's not visible anymore. And they can spray the Leukocrystal Violet solution on it, and it will turn blue. And another one is called Luminol, and when you spray the Luminol onto a surface, if there's blood there, it glows blue and really bright and beautiful. That's the one you've probably seen the most in crime scene shows because it looks so cool when they do it. But those actually aren't as common as doing this Kastle-Meyer test. They both can have false negatives and false positives. So for instance, it'll glow if bleach is present, and that's false positive. So this one is a little more precise than the other ones. Also, remember that this lab test is presumptive, so it's not definitive. If it seems as though your samples might be blood, and think about which ones in this case might be blood, then you have to follow this with a confirmatory blood test. So keep an eye for that video because that's actually the next test that we're gonna run. Okay, girls, how we doing?
Good. Behind the scenes.
How do you like wearing the gloves?
I feel like a dentist. See,
Yeah.
It smells like a dentist. They smell like a dentist. Talk time with Rowan. Sometimes things smell so strong you can taste it. Like the taste of when you're at the dentist and they stick the gloves in your mouth. It smells exactly like how it tastes.
Okay.
This needs to be in the bloopers.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll put this at the end.